Welcome. It's your man, God of Dots, back with another episode of The Audible. Hope everybody had a very good Thanksgiving weekend. I know that I did. A lot of football to break down, a lot of news to get into. I won't hold you long. Like I said, hope everybody had a good weekend. Hope you've had a good start to your week. Looking forward to the games this weekend, but we'll talk about that on Thursday's show. A little bit of housekeeping as always. Thursday, we'll be back. Another episode of The Audible looking to the week ahead. Then a Freestyle Friday show. We'll be kind of diving in a little bit more, kind of give you a preview. We'll be diving in a little bit more into the Josh Giddey situation and the reaction from people in the media. If you've been following this story, I like to call it the non-coverage of this has been quite alarming. But we'll talk about that on Friday for the Freestyle Friday show. And of course, I'll do another space. But I'm not going to hold you too long. Give me a sec, y'all. Gator girl. Oh, you didn't like the thumbnail? You didn't like the thumbnail? How you doing, Miss Murph? You didn't like the thumbnail, Gator girl? I felt it was fitting. Because that is the team nobody has been able to kind of solve this season. But we'll talk about that game a little bit later on in the show. Want to start out recapping Thursday's games. And we have some other news to talk about as far as the NFL is concerned. Like I said, I'm not going to be here too long, but want to kind of get in and do what I do on a normal basis. We're going to start off with the Packers beating the Lions. I told you guys, I've been telling you guys, I've been very high on Detroit for a couple of seasons now, but I told you over the past couple of weeks, I've been concerned about how the defense has been playing and the amount of turnovers they have been committing. This team to me, is kind of taking a step back especially over the last 3 weeks, and it finally caught up to them. Congratulations to the Green Bay Packers for taking care of business Thursday. Typically, on road games, I typically go with the home team, especially on a short week. But Green Bay went there, took care of business, protected the football. Jordan Love had another good game. I'm liking what I'm seeing, especially out of him out of the last 2 weeks. Seems like he's gotten his confidence, and the receivers are making plays for him, and the defense is making plays also. I think it's a little too late for them to make a playoff push, but hey, this is the NFC. Anything is bound to happen. Once you get past the top four, it's kind of a wide open for those last couple playoff spots. Green Bay may be able to make a late push, get hot at this point of the season. Wouldn't surprise me. Hey, it's the NFL. Stuff like that happens. But let's focus in more on what Detroit is got going on. Offensively, they're turning the ball over a little bit too much for my liking. It's still a dynamic offense, still pulling up yards, still pulling up points. But, turning over the football is not a sign of a team that is trying to, position themselves not only for the playoffs, but position themselves for a deep playoff run. And I've been telling you guys, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but on this one, I've been right. I said Detroit is kind of taking a step back as far as on the defensive side of the ball, allowing teams to kind of go up and down the field, not really been able to really generate the pressure that they normally produced at the beginning of the season, not getting the turnovers. I'm not sure what the issue is there. Maybe they're just going through a little bit of a funk, kind of like what the San Francisco 49ers went through early in the season. And we'll talk about the 49ers game a little bit later, but congratulations to the Packers. Congratulations to the Packers for taking care of business. Short week on the road, Thanksgiving, and went up there and looked good. Green Bay looked very, very good. That's 2 weeks in a row. The Green Bay has looked good. Like I said, maybe able to make a late playoff push. I'm not sure. Detroit looked horrible, Miss Murph. What's going on, Spot? Yeah, they they look horrible. You guys know if you've been following the show here and where I used to be. I've been a fan of Detroit over the last couple of seasons, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I see this team kind of regress. Maybe it's just like a little mid-season funk. Maybe they'll get out of it. We'll see. We'll kind of talk about that on Thursday as we look forward to the next week of action. Speaking of action, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Cowboys and Commanders games. Cowboys did what they were supposed to do, take care of business. But let's give it up for DaRon Bland. DaRon Bland, who yes. Let's give it up for DaRon Bland. who set the NFL record for most pick sixes in a single season with 5. And DaRon Bland is uh, not just quietly, but has firmly placed himself in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, if I had a vote at this point of the season, I would give it to Myles Garrett, but DaRon Bland will probably be my second pick as far as Defensive Player of the Year. He's having a fantastic season. I know a lot of people expected a drop off from the secondary play when Trevon Diggs went out earlier the season with an ACL, but DaRon Bland playing like he did last year, playing big time, is proving himself that, hey, he can be a number one corner in the right system, in the right situation. And like I said, he's doing what he's supposed to do. It's not much to take away from this game. You know, Cowboys took care of business, smoked Washington. Thought Washington will put more of a fight up, but hey, sometimes it just goes like that. And the narrative now, in regard to the Cowboys is, hey, they're beating up on bad teams. Hey, you just play who's on your schedule. You play who's on your schedule. Washington's the same team that took Philadelphia to overtime. So, you can miss me with that beating on bad teams. Sometimes, the matchups just work themselves out like that. Yeah. I'm sorry. I had to give me a little sip of water. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this game. Cowboys did what they were supposed to do. Anybody that's disputing that Dak should be in the MVP conversation, you a hater or you just smoking crack? I don't know. Either or. Either or don't matter to me. I'm looking forward to December 10th. Yeah, I got it circled on my calendar. But then, we'll talk about that as we look forward on Thursday. Speaking of the Thursday night game, Thanksgiving game, San Francisco dominated the Seattle Seahawks. And I thought, with it being a short week, I did have the 49ers winning, but I didn't think they was going to win in the fashion that they did. 49ers, I mean, if they pick up a win, and we'll talk about this on Thursday, if they pick up a win against the Eagles, you got to, to a degree, you got to have them back in that conversation for possible best team in NFC. They've looked very good since their 3-game losing streak early in the season. Have been really dominating teams, and Seattle is a very good team. They're up next for my Cowboys. Like I said, I didn't expect it to be that big of a beatdown, and even though the score was 31-13, if you watched the game on Thursday, hopefully you did. You watched it with the family and the friends. It wasn't that close of a game. One thing that makes San Francisco so dangerous is that they have so many guys that can make plays. I mean, when you're talking about having a Pro Bowl running back who's, you got to kind of include him in the discussion for possible Offensive Player of the Year, maybe a dark horse for MVP, depending on how the season kind of plays out. You have that kind of a running back. When you have George Kittle, who's starting to find a rhythm again, you have a Brandon Ayuk, you have Deebo Samuel. It is a scary, scary team to be facing, and the defense is starting to play like they did the first part of the season. I don't know, but we'll talk about that. I don't want to jump ahead, but we'll talk about that Thursday. To me, 49ers and Eagles has got to be the game of the week when you kind of look at the schedule as far as like the ramifications, as far as playoff position is concerned. But the 49ers took care of business, short week on the road in Seattle, a very hostile place, a very team-friendly place for the Seahawks. It's an acoustics thing with the stadium. I don't know how they got away with it, but hey. But 49ers took care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, the Dolphins beat the Jets. I'm not going to spend too much time breaking this one down. Dolphins did what they're supposed to do when you're playing a third string quarterback, which Todd was Tim Boyle, third string quarterback coming out for the Jets. You took care of business, and the Jets. I know if I'm a defensive player for the Jets, I just got to be a bit of a letdown. Yeah, you gave up 34 points, but at some point, man, we're talking about week 12 of the NFL season. Your offense hasn't been able to do anything. You've been out there, you've been keeping this team in the games, and the games you did win, defense was able to make plays, but it's got to be wearing them down.
Type 1.
But it may be some hope. Hold on. It may be some hope. It may be some hope. We got some stuff going on here. Excuse me. But it may be some hope coming down because it's been reported that Aaron Rodgers is, making progress to getting back out on the field. How much that means in the long run for the Jets, who I think have kind of slipped themselves out of really fighting for a playoff spot. I'm not sure. If I'm the Jets, if I'm out of the playoffs, I don't bring Aaron Rodgers back, even if he is healthy. Now, if I have a chance to make a late push, grab one of those last playoff spots, maybe. But if I'm the Jets, play it safe, get Rodgers fully healthy, go into the off season, work on the chemistry stuff and have a better season next year. For me, it's kind of a lost cause. Jets did as much as they could, fought as hard as they could. The defense played as well as they could play to kind of keep them alive, but it's just not happening this year. Gator Girl said, "I don't know much, but Jags running thing." Okay, we'll talk about the Jags. You are so high on the Jags. You are so high on the Jags. Jags played a very good game against the Houston Texans team. A lot was on the line in that game. Possible lead in the division was on the line. Texans still, who I think are in the playoff hunt, comes down to a last-second field goal miss. Very good game. Trevor Lawrence, very good game throwing the ball. I thought this game was going. They were going to have to rely on Travis Etienne. Etienne had a lot of carries, didn't have a lot of yards, but he kept the defense honest enough. In Houston, like I said, if you watch the game, Houston made a lot of penalties, especially when we're talking about down in the red zone with defensive pass interference, defensive holding. But the Texans are showing people that they are for real. Congratulations to the Jaguars for taking care of business. They deserve to win. They outplayed them. They made fewer mistakes than the Texans, but the Texans have nothing to be ashamed of because I think this was a litmus test for how good Houston could be in the future. And I think Houston, is going to be one of those teams that are going to be able to make a playoff push this season. But congratulations to the Jaguars. Yeah, Gator Girl. Yeah, y'all give her a round of applause for her Jaguars. But as always, Gator Girl, roll goddamn tide. Breaking down the rest of the games of the week. I talked about this last week, probably the ugliest game, the most unseemly game of the season. We're talking about Patriots and Giants. It was what I thought it was going to be. Giants win 10-7. Ugly game. Nothing to really write home about. Only news coming out of this for the fourth straight game. Mac Jones has been benched at some point in the game. And I think what you're seeing, and we've talked about this throughout the season, this is the last ride for Bill Belichick. If I'm Bill Belichick, go out with some pride. Go ahead and retire. I hate, for your reputation, as checkered as it is, to go out getting fired from your position as head coach of the New England Patriots. You had a great run. I don't think it's going to be duplicated no time in the near future when you really break down the Patriots dynasty. But this was an ugly game. I'm just going to kind of keep it focused on it. This was an ugly game, man. Ugly. It was hard kind of getting through the highlights because there wasn't much to really go on. Won a lot of highlights. The Giants pick up a win. And the Giants, when you really break down the rest of the NFC, maybe have a chance to make a late push for a playoff spot. This could be one of those teams that kind of get into the playoffs with one of those 9-8 records. I think that last seed in the NFC, maybe a team with a losing record. This has just been that kind of a year. It's been that kind of a year when we're talking about the NFC. But the Giants took care of business, beat the Patriots at home. Moving on. Another unseemly game, but it's some news coming out of this game. The Carolina Panthers losing to the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis, I think, looked pretty good. Bryce Young, it has been a struggle. And that struggle has led to the head coach, Frank Wright, being fired 11 games into his first year. I will say this. When your team is that bad, and then we're talking about a record, and you brought in a head coach who has a Super Bowl experience, Super Bowl winning experience, first year. Typically, when you see a new head coach comes in, he's able to draft his guy at quarterback. There's been reports coming out that Frank Wright wanted to draft C.J. Stroud instead of Bryce Young, but the organization, the ownership wanted to draft Bryce Young. And so far, it looks like when you look at the play on the field between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, it looks like Frank Wright was right for wanting to pick CJ Stroud. I don't, nothing against Bryce Young, roll tide, but he's just not looked good, and it's not a good situation for him. He doesn't have any weapons on offense. Defense is taking kind of a step back this year. It's not been a good situation for Bryce. Do I think he'll be successful in the future? Maybe they got to get some pieces down there in Carolina, but it's crazy for you to fire a guy first year. You brought him in much hype. He comes over from Philadelphia, comes over from Indianapolis, where he was, had a modicum of success when he's had some talent, and there's just not no talent there in Carolina. So for you guys to fire him first season, it's kind of strange. It makes me think that it was more of an issue between head coach and the ownership in the direction that he wanted to take the team, and the direction the team was headed, that kind of led to him getting fired. Now, what that means for the new head coach coming in is, it's not really much to work with in Carolina. You traded your pick for this upcoming draft to the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about the Bears in just a second, but it's not much to really work with. And the guy that comes in to be the head coach for the Carolina Panthers is got to fall in love with Bryce Young, because obviously the ownership is dead set on sticking with Bryce Young. They traded up to get him. Ownership has even come out in the press conference this week saying Bryce Young was always the quarterback that they wanted. And like I said, the other reports have come out that Frank Wright wanted CJ Stroud. And it's cost him his job. It's cost him his job by the team's performance. Congratulations to Tennessee. I think Will Levis has got a future as a starting quarterback in this league. I think Tennessee makes some tweaks. They'll be right back in the fight for maybe the AFC South crown next season. I think it's a wrap for them this season. See what you got with some of the young players at this point. This is the point of the season when you have one of those losing teams, have no shot at the playoffs. Get the young guys on the field, see what you have for the future, and make, some more educated and better decisions as far as the off season is concerned. Speaking of the off season, does it look like Cincinnati's season is truly over? I know Joe Burrow went out with an injury last game. They lose at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you held them to 16, but if you watch the game, Pittsburgh looked very, very, very good offensively for the first time in a very, very long time. First time getting over 400 offensive yards in the game in like a season and a half. It has been that long since they had that kind of an offensive performance out there on the field. Pickett, looked good. The running game looked good. The receivers made plays down the field. And, despite how bad the offense has played, the defense has played spectacular throughout the course of the season. Pittsburgh was one of my dark horse picks to start the season. And it's unfortunate that Cincinnati is going through what they're going through. But, hey, injuries happen. You just have to kind of play through it and move forward with what you have. But I think, with Joe Burrow going out and the limitations that, the backup has, you can't expect the defense to go out there and carry you to the playoffs. And it's just a tough AFC they're competing in when we're talking about Baltimore, when we're talking about Pittsburgh, when it's talking about their own division. Cleveland is still in the mix for a playoff spot. This is a very bad break for Cincinnati. They've already gone ahead and put Joe Burrow on IR, so he's gone for the year. Unless something crazy happens where they get kind of on a hot streak, which I don't see, how bad the offense kind of looked disjointed out there with the backup. Cincinnati, hey, same boat. Kind of look at what you have, start making some decisions as far as the offseason, who to bring back, who to bring in, and kind of move forward from there. Speaking of moving forward, the Denver Broncos have been one of those teams I said have been trending up. And they take care of business at home, winning against a Browns team that has looked kind of weird. What's going on, Mark? Dr. Nigga, how you doing? No need to discuss the Bears. they're on the NFL schedule. Like, I gotta talk about them. But congratulations to the Denver Broncos, who have kind of turned their season around after a very, very slow start under Sean Payton. Russ is starting to look like Russ when he was in Seattle, and this team I'm not. Hey, Kansas City, I wouldn't be overlooking them. They've already beaten you once this season. I'm not saying that Denver is going to chase them down and win the division, but be wary of the Broncos. Be wary of the Broncos. This is one of those teams I thought they would have a much better season to start. It took them a while to kind of get it together, but they got this season on track. Offense, like I said, offense is looking good. Russ is looking like Russ. You haven't heard any negative reports coming out of Denver as far as like Russ's attitude and stuff going on in the locker room. And Cleveland, hey, it's just a bad break. You came out there with the starter rookie at quarterback. You eventually went to PJ Walker. Not having Deshaun Watson on the field is showing. But I think Cleveland will still be in the hunt for a playoff position because they have a very good run games, and they have a very good defense. I think the defense, hey, you just got caught slipping, got caught lacking, for lack of better terms, and you have an off week. Every good defense in the NFL has a off week, and this for me was Cleveland's off week as far as the defense is concerned. I think they'll be able to kind of keep the ship afloat, keep it right. I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to do with the rookie out there with Deshaun Watson being out. If I'm Cleveland, you're in a position to where you're in the hunt for a playoff position. I may be leaning towards more PJ Walker, but it all depends on what if the rookie is playing, performing that well throughout the week, is playing well in practice, and PJ Walker is struggling. I mean, you do what you got to do, but I think this would be a situation where you kind of lean on the veteran a little bit more. I know you want to get Dorian DTR some playing time, but this may not be the situation for that. Speaking of situations for that, congratulations to you, Atlanta Falcons fans. The Falcons took care of business at home, beating the Saints team that has looked. I can't really put my finger on what to make of the Saints. I can't really put my finger on what to make of this entire division. Favorites change in this division from week to week. I think this is going to be one of those divisions that a team wins with maybe a 8-9, 9-8 record. That is kind of giving that vibe. I don't know what to make of the Saints. They're not not consistent enough on either side of the ball this season. And I think Atlanta has found a formula. Hey, get the ball into it took them long enough to goddamn do it, but get the ball into your hands of your playmakers. I'm talking about Kyle Pitts, talking about Bijan Robinson. Get the ball into your hand of your playmakers. I know Desmond Ridder, found himself back out on the field. And I told you guys, if Desmond Ridder's the starter quarterback, I'm picking against the Falcons every single time. But get the ball into your hands of the playmakers. The offense is a running type offense. This is a kind of style you had some success with last year. You're a running team, but get the ball into your hands of your playmakers. And they did that, took care of business at home, beating the Saints team. And right now Atlanta is in the driver's seat for this division because Tampa Bay, who we'll talk about moving on, is not look good. The limitations of Baker Mayfield are showing. Your mascara is running, and it's the Colts took care of business at home against the Buccaneers team, who I thought was going to take care of business, considering what was at stake for them. They're fighting for the division crown, and this kind of came out flat. Colts quietly could be one of those teams that kind of sneak into the back end of the playoffs. I haven't really been monitoring them like that, ever since Anthony Richardson went out. But this team is playing above 500 ball. Gardner Minshew is, they're not asking him to do too much. They are leaning on the playmakers out there. Has been reported that running back Jonathan Taylor had thumb surgery, so he will not be active for the next game. So that means Zach Moss. But they started out the season without playing without Jonathan Taylor, so it's not that big of a blow. I got to start watching the Colts a little bit more. They're one of those, under the radar type teams. It's no, flashy big names. It's no household names. Just making splash plays for them. They're just a very good football team. Know what kind of team they are and play to their strengths. So congratulations to them for taking care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, as we kind of wrap up, because I want to, it was a long week. It was a long week, y'all. Speaking of taking care of business, Bears take care of business against the Vikings. Very ugly game by Minnesota. Minnesota, Dobbs look bad. Dobbs look very, 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 very bad. I mean, the amount of turnovers they had. I guess Bears, you won, but when a team turns the ball over that much, and you have to come down to a last second field goal to win, it kind of says what state that your team is really in. That is a game. Let the Vikings have 4 turnovers against not even saying the elite teams in the NFC. Let the Vikings have that kind of performance against the Packers or hell, even against the Falcons, and they get smoked. Josh Dobbs look terrible, like terrible. He looked like they just brought him off the street. It was an ugly game. Hey, NFL. I mean, the schedule is the schedule, man. But some of these primetime games, man, brutal. It was a struggle watching Justin Fields get out there and perform, and I'm not encouraged. We'll see. There's been reports that the team is not looking to draft a quarterback. It's news coming out. The team is not looking to draft a quarterback. At the top of the draft, where they'll likely be picking at, thanks to them having Carolina's pick. If you end up with a top pick and you're going to stick with Justin Fields, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the player to get. But that's a little bit further on down the season. You have the Ravens taking care of business against the Chargers team. Ravens took care of business against a team that has been inconsistent, and I think you're seeing the head coach. He's on his final legs. I expect him to be up out the door by the end of the season. This team is underperformed. This team is underachieved. This team is underperforming, underachieved since he's been the head coach. I like Justin Herbert's talent, but he just not elevate the play of those players around him. And if you take his skills, if you just watch his skills, the way he's able to spin that ball, he's in that upper echelon of quarterbacks as far as talent is concerned, but it's not led to wins for the Chargers. And for lack of better terms, I think, hey, they're at that point of the season. You're not making the playoffs. Go ahead and see what you have with some of those young guys, and start making some roster decisions going forward. Baltimore looking to me like the best team in the AFC. Quietly taking care of business. I'm curious to see, how their season kind of, flows out, because as well as Baltimore has played, they have not locked up the division just yet. There's still a lot of football left to play in that AFC North, and I think the Ravens know that. They're not taking their foot off the gas and be the Chargers team they were supposed to be. Now for the thumbnail, I wanted to say this towards the end of the show. Bills and Eagles. I would say this. Congratulations to the Eagles for pulling it together once again in the second half. 4th straight game where they've had to come back double digits in the second half. Congratulations to the Eagles. But I would say this, man. I've overlooked a lot of stuff when it came to the Eagles, and when we're talking about some of the officiating no calls that we're seeing. At this point, it's getting and not just with the Eagles game. It's not just with the Eagles game. It is becoming very, very, very goddamn apparent that some teams are getting way more favorable calls and whistles and non-whistles than others. I mean, Buffalo, some of those non-pass interference, the fumble that was ruled incomplete pass, like this, NFL officiating is ruining a lot of games as of late. It's ruining a lot of games with some of these calls, and I get it. Football, if you're going to be real technical and real by the book, when officiating an NFL game, it's holding on every play. It's some kind of an interference or is something going on. Yes, it's throughout the NFL, Miss Murphy, but it is magnified, with the Philadelphia Eagles. One, because a lot of their games are on prime time. A lot of their games, especially during this stretch they're on now, are must-see TV, big game of the week. And it is becoming very, very, very apparent, man. Like some needs to be done as far as NFL officiating. is concerned. I'm pretty sure the league is going to be looking at that because they're getting a lot of critique week after week, and it's growing louder and louder. People are just, you know, it's one thing to kind of like miss a holding call on a defensive line, but some of these, non-pass interferences, I'm having flashbacks of the Philadelphia Eagles tackling the tight end before he was able to catch the ball. You know what, man? I can't. When you can't, it's hard enough to win an NFL game as it is, but you can't, beat that team and be beating the refs. And I think, is the consensus is growing louder and louder. Something needs to be done to address some of the deficiencies when it comes to NFL officiating. Now, I will say this to kind of get off of that soapbox as far as NFL officiating. Philadelphia shows a lot of heart, especially when we're talking about coming back. They're showing a lot of heart. Had to give me a sip of water. Showing a lot of heart when we're talking about, being able to come back. Jalen Hurts is obviously, injured. Obviously playing injured, but he's not letting that take him off the field, and he's making plays when he needs to make plays. Jalen Hurts for me is firmly in that conversation for MVP, and I think we're going to have. Ms. Murphy, do you know how many years the Eagles were on the other side of this? Ma'am, I don't know. I mean, NFL officiating has been bad for a very long time. And they tried to address it a couple years ago by having coaches challenge certain pass interference calls late in the game. But I mean, some stuff you got to let go as far as the holding in the trenches. I mean, that's just natural. But some of these blatant, pass interference calls, man, like, come on. Like, I mean, let's talk about the horse collar tackle on Josh Allen. That I saw a picture, referee standing right there watching it. I mean, he's got him by the neck and he's grabbing him by the back of the jersey. And as much as the NFL talks about injuries, and you just don't see quarterbacks being allowed to get manhandled like that. Not in today's NFL. And not in today's NFL. You just don't see it. Go on, Trey. You just don't see it for a court. You saw that tackle, Hassan Reddick on Josh Allen. You don't see that happening in the NFL with quarterbacks. Come on now. And for everybody in America to see it was a horse collar tackle, the ref standing right there like I ain't see nothing. I mean, I could deal with a late flag, but call it like it is, man. But we'll see. We'll see, because I'm looking forward to their matchup against the 49ers. I'll give you my prediction on Thursday when we get to that show. And to kind of wrap up this week, as far I know I missed the game. Chiefs beat the Raiders. Nothing to take home there. Chiefs took care of business like they always do when they playing against an AFC West team. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. And I'm gonna kind of give you a sneak preview of what Thursday's show will kind of be. I'm looking at the schedule real quick. Thursday, matter of fact, Thursday's game, we're talking about big playoff implications as far as seeding is concerned at the NFC, where we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys. Another city, look at Broncos and Texans is another game that's kind of must see. And of course, Eagles at home taking on the 49ers. That's probably the biggest game of the week. And we're talking about, possible number one seeds being on the line in the next couple of weeks. Your Eagles got the 49ers, and, coming to Dallas. And I think at that point, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out who's who and what's what, and where teams fall as far as playoff positioning is concerned. These next 2 weeks are going to be very critical in the NFC. The AFC's got a lot more to kind of work out, but I think these next 2 weeks in the NFC are going to really make and break a lot of teams' seasons as far as where they end up in the playoffs. But let me get my behind up out of here. It's always appreciated. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like I said, we'll be back on Thursday. We'll be back on Friday with a Freestyle Friday. End you off with the phrase that pays over here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.